Holiday and family gatherings are upon us, plus it's getting cold, so it's just about the perfect time for some hot pot. Now, hot pot doesn't need much introduction. It's one of the greatest foods of all time. Plus, there are so many restaurants beginning to do these amazing hot pot all-you-can-eats. It's such a blast, honestly. But if you want the best experience and comfort, which hot pot is all about, you have to make it yourself at home. I'm teaching you the secret recipes and preparations you need to create the perfect hot pot feast. Let's begin.
せーのでもそんなんじゃダメもうそんなんじゃほら心は進化するよもっともっと
Now, before we get into the beautiful preparation, there are a couple of things that you need to know. So, you really need a hot pot, and I always prefer the one that has a division in the middle like you see here, because then you can have two different broths inside. You also need a little stove to put the hot pot on top. You can use an induction stove like this one, or like one of those small gas stoves. So anything that heats it up. There's really 3 parts of hot pot that you need to understand to create the best feast. Now the first one is the broth. The way that I usually eat it and the way that I see it eaten is that it has 2 different types. Usually you have one side that's more mild and fragrant, and then the second one you have something really spicy and numbing, more like a mala flavor. The second is ingredients preparation, and hot pot is a very flexible thing. I think every family has their own specific dishes that they love to eat inside of it. So I'm gonna show you my favorite ingredients and how to prepare them, but keep in mind that you can use anything you want. I'm sure your preferences and mine are going to be a little bit different, but the foundation is still the same. And the last thing is the sauce. And just like the other things we talked about, this can also vary from person to person. But my family has a very specific sauce that we use that goes with literally every single dish that you can put in hot pot. That's what I'm going to share with you guys to give you the full authentic Bao Bei experience when you're eating this hot pot feast. Let's actually get started now. Alright, so we're starting with the broth, and here we have some pork bones which are cut. You can use any bones that you want. And with that, we're going to roughly chop some aromatics, including some ginger and scallions, as well as celery. When you're making broth, you don't really need to worry about how to cut these ingredients because it's going to absorb the flavor anyways. So throw that in a pot, and we're going to also add some bay leaves. And set those aromatics aside for now. First, what we got to do is parboil these bones for about 5 minutes, and this will get rid of any unwanted flavor and rawness. Drain those babies and give them a good shower. This will ensure that the flavor that we get is completely clean and delicious. Just like that. So we're throwing these back into a clean pot with water, and this time we're actually going to cook the broth, so throw in the rest of the ingredients as well. Bring it up to a boil, then put it on a low heat and let it simmer for about 2 to 3 hours. So just leave that be, and onto the hard part. Mala broth is a tricky one, and it requires lots of ingredients, but you can make your life a lot easier by buying these pre-made packets like I have here. But of course, I'm also going to show you how I make it from scratch, my secret recipe, and also what you can use to enhance these pre-bought packages. Now be warned, this is about to be ingredients overload, but I have labeled each ingredient with stars. 1 star for anything that is absolutely necessary for making this from scratch, 2 stars for anything that is also necessary and can be added to those pre-bought bags to spice it up a little bit and get it up to level. So if you can't get all of these ingredients, which is completely understandable, this is a lot, just try to get as many as you can that are starred, or just use the pre-bought bags and then add the double starred ingredients as needed. All the recipes and things that you need will be listed in my description as always, so don't be afraid to check it out if you need a comprehensive checklist. Oh yeah, that's a lot of stuff, and this fragrant flavor and spice is completely unmatched. Now let's go activate it. So in a big pot, throw in 3 cups of oil and heat it up to a point where it starts to bubble when you put chopsticks inside, just like you see here. So keep it on a high heat and carefully throw in all of those ingredients and just watch the sizzle beauty. But don't get too entranced, you gotta remember to stir it up, or else this thing is going to burn. And it's very important that you start on a high heat to bring out all of the flavors. Then 10 minutes later, you can bring it down to a low heat just until you see little bubbles like this. Simmer for another 30 minutes, and then it's time to add in some bone beef broth. Now pour it in slowly and in small amounts at first to temper the heat, and then you can continue a constant flow until all your beef broth is done. And now the sizzling has subsided, so be sure to give it a stir, bring it up to a high heat yet again until it reaches a boil. Ooh, look at that vortex of spice. So, once it reaches a boil, bring it back down to a low heat and just let that simmer for an hour. Now, if you do it in this order, both broths should be done at the same time, and then it's time to filter out each one. So starting with our light broth, we're going to take out any big pieces and then strain it out. And now we're going to wash that pot that it was just previously in and put it back on the stove. This will just keep the broth nice and clean, keep everything neat, flavorful, and pure. Now at this point, we're going to add a few more herbal ingredients, including goji berry and red dates, as well as a splash of sake, and this will just amplify that herbal and delicious flavor to the max. Now keep that on a low simmer. We're going to do the same exact thing now with our spicy broth, but we're going to actually scoop it out first this time because this one has lots of stuff in it. And I highly suggest discarding this in a plastic bag and tying it up so that the oil doesn't get everywhere in your trash. And now this is just the essence of pure spice mala beauty. And just let both broths low simmer until ready. I'm telling you, this mala broth is just... Now it's time for the ingredients prep, and I'm just going to show you a few techniques you may need to prepare some of these top-notch foods. First, we got some of my favorite root vegetables, including some lettuce, which we're just going to cut downwards into nice sized slices. Most efficient way to do this is to cut it and then plate it right after. On to the next, Japanese mountain yams. These are delicious, but the reason I'm wearing gloves is because these things do funky things to your fingers, so just beware. Now, with big root vegetables like the radish, the best way to cut them is rangiri style, where you're turning them slightly every time you cut to maintain a sharp edge in triangle slices. Enoki mushrooms, love this stuff. All you gotta do is cut the bottom part that's really hard and you're good to go. Silken tofu, a must-have in hot pot, especially with the mala broth because it just absorbs the spicy flavor like a soft velvet sponge. And always be sure to treat tofu in some hot water right after it's done cutting. Just let it soak inside for 30 minutes to an hour. Easy peasy. Here we got some beef tripe, which I absolutely love. So if you love it too, or you want to try it out, you gotta learn how to cut it and prepare it. I always pour some boiling water on top for just 30 seconds or so and then treat it with cold water, and this will make it a little bit crispy, much easier to cut and tender. Now here we got a beautiful specimen, pork liver. I love this stuff, okay? I know it's probably not for everybody, but I want to show you the way to cut it just because it's a little bit different, and if you want to try it, you should. It's so good. S-grade, high priority hot pot toppings are sliced meats. This doesn't take much prep work at all, assuming that you buy it pre-sliced, which you should. So just lay some on top of each other, plate it. You can get any slices you want. I have some pork belly here, some beef brisket, and some lamb, all the yummy stuff. Plating and transferring to the dining table. Now here we have a great assortment of miscellaneous items that you always find in hot pot, including some rice cakes, fish balls, things of that sort that you always find hidden in your freezer untouched for years. For these miscellaneous items, all we do is cut them, easy peasy stuff, serve them as you wish. And that's the basic idea of how you need to prepare and plate your ingredients, and again, you can use anything you want using these preparation techniques as needed. At this point, your broths should be at a standby simmer and all of your ingredients are plated and ready to use. It's time to make the sauce, which we are currently doing by finely mincing some scallions, garlic, and some ginger. Chop away, and once all three of those ingredients are decently minced, bring them all together and then do a final mince. Into the sauce bowl and set that aside. Now we're going to cut some cilantro, making sure that we cut the stems very finely and the leaves are whatever. Those can be roughly chopped. Now this does not go in the sauce yet, so just set that aside. Alright, again we have some ingredients overload, and I did the same thing here where I starred anything that I consider a necessary ingredient that will still conjure up a version of this mind-blowing sauce. So the key ingredients to look out for here are all of the aromatics that we minced earlier, as well as some Chinese barbecue sauce, also known as bullhead barbecue, peanut butter, some scotch, either meating or rice vinegar for a bit of acidity, and some soy paste and soy sauce for that savory goodiness. And I have been told that a lot of people don't know what soy paste is or have never seen it before. If you can't find it, just use more soy sauce and also add a little bit of oyster sauce too. Now, once all of that is mixed together, we can throw in the cilantro from earlier. So just plop that straight in. And again, this is optional depending on if you have that terrible hating cilantro gene. If you do, I feel sorry for you, but the sauce will still be incredible without it. And the last touch is some sesame oil. This is completely necessary and will really let the vibrant aroma of this sauce shine brightly. Mix that up and our final part is done. Our Bao Bei masterpiece hot pot sauce. Back to our 2 pots of broth, we're gonna actually start putting some ingredients in, starting with the root vegetables because they take the longest. We can let that cook for 15 minutes or so and then start throwing in some fish balls or tofu, things with slightly longer cook times, unlike sliced meats. Now, the reason I'm putting some initial ingredients now is so we can get an initial pot ready to eat so that when we put it in the hot pot, we can eat it instantly without having to awkwardly wait at the dinner table for everything to heat up. And now, family and friends are ready at the dinner table. Everybody is eager to eat. All we gotta do now is transfer. One side light, one side dark. We gotta keep the yin-yang in balance. And remember, we'll still have those 2 pots with remaining broth, and that's gonna be crucial later on because as you continue to eat hot pot, especially a big feast, both broths will begin to reduce, so you can always have that backup to refill to your heart's content and eat as long as you want. Now, transfer that pot of hard work and passion to the dinner table and enjoy your feast and appreciate your family and friend gatherings. I know I usually have a part where I eat all of my delicious recipes, but because I actually made this hot pot for a family dinner, I did not get the chance to do that this time. But you saw the preparation, you saw all the hard work, just take my word for it. This hot pot is absolutely spectacular. To anybody who actually wants to take a stab at making this hot pot feast, best of luck to you all, and I know you're gonna have an amazing time. And don't forget, this is the chili broth that we made. You can always make a bunch of it, store some of it in containers just like this, and freeze it for months on end. And then anytime you want to eat hot pot again, take it out, let it defrost, and put it straight in the hot pot. Simple as that. And this stuff is truly the treasure of this whole recipe and video. So hope you enjoy it. Don't forget to show your support and subscribe so I can continue to feed my little babies. Peace out.
ふわふわるふわふわり